Hello everybody, it's Anna here again today, and today we are at Dolbadarn Castle in Llanberis in North Wales, in Snowdonia, North Wales. And as promised, we're going to have a little bit of history on the castle, so come along and join us. You're very, very welcome. Don't forget, welcome in Welsh is Croeso. If we have time, we'll do a little bit of Welsh language as well, but you're very welcome. Dolbadarn Castle in Welsh is Castell Dolbadarn, and it's a fortification built by the Welsh Prince Llywelyn the Great, or in Welsh, Llywelyn ap Iorwerth, during the early 13th century at the base of the Llanberis Pass in North Wales. The castle was important both military and as a symbol of Llywelyn's power and authority. The castle features a large stone keep, which historian Richard Avent considers the finest surviving example of a Welsh round tower. Now, in 1284, Dolbadarn Castle was taken by Edward I, naughty Edward I of England, who removed some of its timbers to build his new castle at Caernarfon. And if you remember, going back over a few videos, when we did our video on Segontium, we learned how naughty Edward of England, he stole some bricks from Segontium to take to Caernarfon, and he did the same here. And anyway, this was, going back to the story here, this castle was used as a manor house for some years before falling into ruin. And in the 18th and 19th century, it was a popular destination for painters interested in sublime and picturesque landscapes. And it's now owned by Cadw and managed as a tourist attraction, and is protected as a Grade 1 listed building. So Dolbadarn Castle was built in either the 1220s or the 1230s by Llywelyn the Great, or Llywelyn ap Iorwerth, at the base of the Llanberis Pass, overlooking the Lake of Llanberis in North Wales. Now, traditionally the Welsh princes had not constructed castles, instead using undefended palaces called llysoedd, or courts. And from the 11th century onwards, the Normans had advanced into Wales, taking land in the north and establishing a band of occupied territory in the south called the Welsh Marches. Now, during the 12th century, some timber and earthwork castles began to be built, but in small numbers. And Llywelyn the Great initially controlled the princedom of Gwynedd, but grew more powerful over the course of his reign, extending his influence over much of Wales during the early years of the 13th century. But Llywelyn was faced by several challenges, including dealing with the threat from the kings of England and maintaining his authority over the native Welsh. So as part of his strategy, he built Castell Aber, an innovative stone Welsh castle in the 1220s, and shortly afterward he began the first phases of this Dolbadarn Castle, constructing the initial stone fortifications on the site, including 2 square stone towers. The location of this castle was important because it controlled an important mountain pass, and possibly because Llywelyn claimed authority as the Lord of the Mountains and Coasts of Wales. Several of his castles appear to have been located with such political symbolism in mind, and it's also possible that Llywelyn may have built his castle on top of the remains of a previous fortification constructed by Malgwyn Gwynedd, who we've heard about in previous Welsh history lessons on our channel. He was a king of Gwynedd in the 6th century, although no such remains have been found. But that's interesting anyway. And following Llywelyn's death in 1240, Gwyned's power declined and many of its eastern lands were taken by naughty Henry III of England in 1247. Llywelyn's grandson, Llywelyn ap Gruffydd, took power in 1255 and imprisoned his brother, Owain ap Gruffydd, before extending his power across Wales. Owain was eventually released in 1277, and there has been much historical debate over which castle he was held in. Anyway, the conflict between the Welsh princes and the English kings continued in the reign of Edward I of England. In 1282, Llywelyn fought a final campaign against Edward, ending in the prince's death near Builth that December, and his brother, Dafydd ap Gruffydd, assumed power, but during 1283 was forced south into Snowdonia, and by May his government was based from Dolbadarn Castle. Then Edward deployed 7,000 troops to detain Dafydd, who was finally captured and executed in October, and Dolbadarn was occupied by Norman forces. King Edward of England was determined to prevent any further rebellion in North Wales and set about building a sequence of new castles and walled towns, replacing the old Welsh administrative system with a new principality governed from Caernarfon. Dolbadarn was no longer relevant, and within 2 years, timber from this castle was being used by the Normans for the construction of Caernarfon Castle. This was both a practical and a symbolic action, demonstrating Norman power over one of the most important possessions of the Welsh princes. The remaining parts of the castle continued to be used as a manor house into the 14th century, but by the 18th century, however, Dolbadarn Castle was ruined and uninhabited, and it's now in the care of Cadw, and as such is protected as a Grade 1 listed building and as a scheduled monument. So there we are, that's the history, well, some of the history of Dolbadarn Castle here in Llanberis in Snowdonia, North Wales. So we'll leave it there for today, and we'll say ta-ta for now, and there's Alf. We'll see you on the next adventure, or the next Welsh lesson, or the next Welsh history lesson. Don't forget to keep practicing your Welsh, because practice makes perfect. I'll leave you with a few scenes here. I think you'll find myself looking over at the castle from Llanberis. There I am. We'll say ta-ta for now, and we'll see you soon. Ta-ta, nos da.